coming on a little earlier than normal tonight for a moment 9 months in the making. Look at the live pictures at this hour. NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are making their long-awaited return to Earth from the International Space Station. Of course, this would end a remarkable space odyssey. Their SpaceX capsule just becoming visible. You see it there in the live picture. They are speeding through the Earth's atmosphere, heading for a splashdown just minutes from now, about 5:57 Eastern Time, obviously about 6 minutes or so from now, just off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. The parachutes we are about to see deploying here about 4 minutes before splashdown. That should happen around 5:53 Eastern Time, about 2.5 minutes or so from now. We should see that at any moment. You can watch it as it comes through the cloud cover. Of course, as you know, we've been reporting on this story. Astronauts Wilmore and Williams arriving on the Boeing Starliner spacecraft for what was supposed to be an 8-day mission. That was back in June. We reported on the technical issues. The Starliner kept them from returning home, NASA sending it back to Earth empty, keeping the astronauts on the space station until a relief crew arrived this past weekend. Now, their SpaceX Dragon capsule docking at the space station, astronauts Wilmore and Williams, along with 2 other astronauts, then boarding a second SpaceX capsule, undocking from the station, beginning their trip home early today in the early morning hours. Of course, back here on Earth, their families have been waiting months for this moment. Suni Williams' family telling our team that everyone is looking forward to celebrating their return. We do have coverage on the ground. Faith Abube is at Cape Canaveral in Florida. And Faith, as we look at these pictures, hard to imagine both of these families really waiting for their loved ones to finally come home after what turned out to be nearly a year in space.
Like we said before, things
Yeah, David, and it's not just the families that are excited. It's also the NASA team. NASA officials we've spoken to over the last several days tell us that in this moment, they're on pins and needles as they are watching the spacecraft come closer and closer to the Florida coast. They've done this multiple times, but each splashdown is unique. Each one presents its own opportunity, and so they're watching this closely. But no one more excited about this splashdown that they're waiting for here than the family members who have had to sacrifice so much over the last 9 months. Remember, as you just mentioned here, Suni and Butch went for that 8-day mission on that Boeing Starliner on that crewed flight, that first test flight there with the crew. They were supposed to come in just a few days. As Navy captains, retired Navy captains, they are aware that things change. They've done this long enough to know that there are changes that come with this. However, no one would have imagined that this would have taken 9 months for them to come back home. Their families anxiously waiting, listening to them, trying to get word on what will happen. And of course, we're watching all of this happen in real time.
Faith Abube, thank you. Of course, we've seen the parachutes deployed there moments ago as Faith was reporting on the families waiting for their return. Look at these remarkable pictures as these 2 astronauts who were in space for nearly a year. The parachutes now deployed, obviously working for that final descent to slow down the capsule for this splashdown just off the coast of Florida. Let's listen in to NASA for a moment. Let's get a feel for this.
And they continue to ensure that the Dragon spacecraft slows down even further. As we mentioned, Freedom will be traveling 16 miles per hour when it splashes down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida, here at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon. And there we go.
We have visual on 4 healthy mains.
There you have it, 4 parachutes now deployed. We knew there would be a total of 4. And as we heard from the NASA scientists there who are narrating this video, 16 miles per hour when that capsule splashes down just off the coast of Florida. We're joined by retired NASA astronaut and ABC News contributor Katie Coleman, also watching this. Katie, you know this all too well. You were on the International Space Station yourself, but it's still incredible to see.
now awaiting visuals of splashdown.
You know, it's actually hard to, it was hard to breathe.
When you were coming back yourself, and describe for me what this moment is like for these 2 astronauts. We know there are 2 others accompanying them in their return to space, but what this moment feels like and what it feels like when they actually splash down into the water.
Well, I think I hate to say it, but I think we've seen the scariest part, at least it's the part where I wasn't breathing, which is wanting to see those 2 drogue chutes that start the sequence.
You're looking at 800
And then
a live view of Crew 9
seeing all 4.
just minutes away from splashing down off the
And do you remember what this moment was like, Katie, yourself, in the return to Earth, and what this must be like for them?
It's a wild ride up until just now, and now you're just waiting for the water and knowing that it's probably going to be a pretty good, solid landing there, but you've got instruments to tell you when it's coming. And again, you just want everything to be working right.
We're looking at the 4 astronauts inside the capsule right now, Katie. And can you imagine the 2 astronauts who went up there for 8 days and ended up being up there for nearly a year, what that must have been like?
I have to tell you that there's a bunch of us that are envious.
I had a feeling you would say that they had extra time to spend up in space. For those of you who know what it's like, you served twice on the International Space Station. But again, we're watching these final moments before splashdown. We're about a minute away. And take me back to this moment. What does it feel like as you hit the water when you're inside that capsule?
I came down in the Soyuz, so it wasn't quite the same as the water, a little harder. And at the same time, what happens is they're actually going to submerge the whole capsule under the water. It looks like a pretty calm sea there. That's always a good sign. But I remember just looking and watching the numbers count down, and you're just waiting and waiting, and it's the longest wait ever, I'll tell you.
Former NASA astronaut Katie Coleman watching these live pictures with us coming in from NASA. What you're looking at here is we're on the air a little earlier than normal tonight. These 2 astronauts, along with 2 others accompanying them, they are just moments away from splashdown, traveling at about 16 miles per hour at this point. They have 4 parachutes to ensure a safe landing as they come back down to the water. If we just get rid of the topic bar for just a moment so we can actually see the...
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
Back on Earth. And there the applause.
Oh,
back on Earth.
I've got chills
the 3
just
words
looking at it.
that the family of Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams have been waiting for 9 months now. Their 2 loved ones went up to the International Space Station to serve for 8 days or so. They said a number of times from the International Space Station that they did not mind being up there longer than they had planned, but that the most welcome home, they just said, from NASA headquarters, welcome home to those 4 astronauts as we keep our eyes trained on the live pictures here.
An amazing, what a ride.
They said the most difficult part, as I was saying, of ending up there for more than a year was being away from their family. Butch Wilmore missed most of his younger daughter's senior year of high school. He has an older daughter as well who's in college, so a reunion between Dad and his 2 girls here when they can get out of the capsule and out of the water here.
And as you can see on your
we did anticipate it would be quite some time before we actually see them now. We're going to see the capsule here floating in the water. It's about a half an hour to 45 minutes before you actually expect to see the astronauts themselves. We'll have that for you on World News Tonight coming up a short time from now. Suni Williams had been using the internet on board the International Space Station to talk with her mother, who is a senior, as she checked in on her and her health and her well-being, letting her know that she'd be home soon. She said she looked forward to reuniting with her mom, her husband Michael, and her 2 Labradors, Gunner and Bailey. We're going to be awfully excited when Mom comes through that door.
Copy, you're in section 2 for the environmental assessment.
So welcome back to Earth. Crew 9, you can see a recovery vessel there in the distance, which will certainly take the 4 astronauts, again, Butch Wilmore, Suni Williams, and 2 other astronauts who accompanied them back. And this was on a SpaceX capsule. As you know, they went up on a Boeing Starliner in the first place almost a year ago. And the initial plan was to come home on a Boeing vessel as well. That did not work out. Eventually, it was a SpaceX capsule that would bring them back. Let's listen to what they're saying.
After approximately 17 hours of a return journey from space.
The SpaceX recovery ship and team have been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and they will now make their way to the splashdown location.